Hello, welcome back to the Raw Podcast. We're going to be doing a little Q&A discussing Sunderland's 1-0 loss to Fulham at Craven Cottage. My name is James Copley. I'm joined by my good friend Michael Bowers, who's back for his second consecutive week. Michael, how are you doing?
The displeasure of disgracing everyone's screens again. I love it. But no, I'm not doing too bad, James. How are you getting on?
Yeah, very good apart from yesterday's result. We also have a third guest as well, who I'm going to introduce as Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's new best friend. It's Taff.
Yeah, I didn't make any friends there, did I?
I thought you came across very, very well, but the tribalistic nature of football, I think, might have done you in a little bit there.
But I don't mind. I fully agree with you when you said Jack's signing of the season, though.
Yeah, I have no objections to how it's all portrayed. It was I was a bit bored at that point and thought I will interrupt.
You thought you were a bit bored. Clickbait.
Well, I mean, I think that's what they wanted. Anyway.
They ask and you shall give.
Yeah, that's interesting. Right, so we are here to answer questions. Obviously, Sunderland lost 1-0 against Fulham at Craven Cottage. Disappointing performance. I want to touch on first a question from Ian Crow over on Twitter. You can get your questions in on YouTube as well, and the Facebook comments will display them on the screen as they come in. Ian's question centers around whether basically we should revert back to a 4-3-3. I think this is an interesting question. Obviously, Sunderland have been playing sort of a 5-4-1 over recent weeks. I felt like yesterday that it was noticeable that we didn't have the extra body in midfield. I'm not necessarily sure a 4-3-3 would have completely changed the game or anything. It's all very easy to say in hindsight. But what I would say is that I feel like Le Bris has perhaps been a little bit spooked by that Manchester United away first half. And it appears to me now like he's quite cautious. But you have to say that did serve him well against Chelsea and against Arsenal at home. So you do have to take the rough with a smooth. Taff, will come to you first.
Yeah, I think there's multiple things here. I am one of those people who don't really like the back five. I understand why people do. It's not necessarily for me. I think it has merit playing against heavy possession sides that love to play straight at you through the middle, like Arsenal, like Chelsea. I think it has merit playing there because we're very solid and we're playing the break. But I think against teams like Fulham like the width, they like the flanks, they like crossing. They're not going to try and play through the middle as often. And yesterday, we kind of just gifted them their game plan by sitting in a five at the back. I think you're right. We lack creativity. And if you look at our midfield yesterday, I think the problem really sits there. Against a team like Fulham, if your midfield is Hume, Lefay, Xhaka, and Siddiqui, you have to think, well, that's kind of lacking in creativity against a team that we really should be trying to be on the front foot against, trying to press against. And I think the conditions didn't help us either, because if that's your midfield and you're playing with a back five and you're folding Hume into the midfield and pressing forwards, then you're going to play a lot of long balls and look for the second ball down, which is what we do. But on a massively wet surface, and it was tipping down yesterday, those balls just zipped off the pitch and ran away, and Wilson had no chance taking them down. So I think we sort of cut away any advantage that we might have had, and we sort of just kind of walked into Fulham's game plan, really. And I didn't think it worked at all yesterday.
Michael, interestingly, for the first time actually since he's been injured, I actually thought the game was crying out for a Habib Diarra type player, somebody who could get hold of the ball, carry Sunderland up the pitch, link defence and attack. I thought the gap between Sunderland's forward line and defence, as Taff mentioned, was a little bit too big on the day. Obviously, the conditions were awful as well. And in terms of the mentality of the group as well, perhaps a little bit of okay, it's raining, we're away from home, this is horrendous, we're going to settle for a point. But fair play to Fulham. Fair play to Fulham. That was a Freudian slip.
I was going to say, try saying that again 5 times fast.
Yeah, I know. Fair play to them, though, because for me, they showed the desire to really win that game.
Yeah, I think both things can be true in equal measure. I think you have to say that for Sunderland standards, it was well below par. It was below what we had set as the norm this season. And obviously, days like this are going to happen. And as I'm sure you both agree, if you're not on it in the Premier League, with a division that's full of quality as the Premier League, then you will get punished. Even if you want against teams that are quote-unquote mid-table sides, they still have a lot of quality that... I mean, if you look at when we played Forest, for example, I think, although we won that game, Forest are nowhere near bottom 3 standard for me. And if you look at the quality they've got, they're meant to be a mid-table shorter side. So that says it quite a bit. But both things can be true, though. We were poor, but I think you've got to give Fulham a lot of credit for that, because I think that to some extent Fulham made us look poor. And I think as far as the system goes, I'm personally, for me, I don't mind five. I don't mind whether it's 4 at the back, 5 at the back. It for me completely depends on the opponent. I agree with you. Actually, I was thinking this morning about the game yesterday, and I was thinking, yeah, it did miss a bit of Habib Diarra, because although Diarra and Siddiqui, for example, both have athletic energy, they're not quite the same player for me. Whereas Diarra is more focused on really driving forward. I'm not saying Siddiqui doesn't do that, but Diarra is particularly the one who's more focused on driving the ball forward, getting it forward with purpose, and trying to link midfield to attack really well. And I think we did show yesterday that I think if we had him in there, it could have been a different story, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. We don't know. So for me, I think ultimately you've got to give Fulham the credit for the victory, because I think it was deserved. When they scored, it was annoying because we'd managed to get through 84 minutes, and I think towards the end, with how poorly I thought, for our standards anyway, that we played, get out of there with something. If you get out of there, you're halfway towards 40 points, aren't you? But and look, I still think we'll be all right this season for what it's worth. I think obviously we've got to make sure to keep your heads, and hopefully this doesn't turn into a bad run. But even if it does, this was going to happen at some point in the Premier League. I don't think anyone can be naive enough to think that it wouldn't have done. One of my close mates on one of the midweek Mackem podcasts I do thinks we were going to get Europe. So I'm like, well, I think you might rein that in a little bit, mate. I agree with what Taff had said with the brilliant content on propaganda with Conor Bromley. Like, Europe probably is a bit too far this season, unless we really reinforce world-class levels in January. But for me, I think, Fulham deserved. I think they had the chances before then. I thought we were quite fortunate at half-time to be 0-0. Because I thought they had the opportunities within the first half. The great chance they had, I think it was one where Ryan Sessegnon had one not long before the goal, when he gets towards the left byline and then just basically doesn't even get a shot on target from that position, which is really poor. So, but yes, I do agree with you. I think the conditions didn't help. I don't want to blame the referee, because Sunderland were poor. But my God, I mean, I thought the Everton referee was worse. But from everywhere I'm seeing, and Taff might know better than me. Taff might know better than me because he was at the game. But I've seen a referee come under a lot of stick. But as far as Sunderland's performance is concerned, yes, I think we were well below par for what we expect. And actually, to be fair, when we have had a loss, we have bounced back, haven't we? So I think that's going to be tested in the next couple of games. It wasn't a foul on time.
Shall we tackle that goal, actually, Taff?
Yeah, go on then. Go for it.
For me, yes, I think the referee gets it wrong. Did he drop a little bit of a stinker? Yes. Is he the reason we lost the game? No. I think there's enough time after that bad decision and enough things happen for Sunderland to improve on. I don't think you can necessarily blame him for the goal. Yes, it's frustrating, but Hume needs to get out better. Ballard needs to do better. Roefs has left a little bit of no man's land. I do get the frustrations at the referee, because I do think you had a poor game. But for me, that's not the reason Fulham had 24 shots to Sunderland's 4.
Yeah, I agree. It was hard to see. It was quite a distance from the away end. So it didn't look like a foul, but we're so far away, you can never really be sure. But we have plenty of time to reset from that free kick. And it's in the middle of the park. It's not like, on the edge of the 16-yard box or anything. And, people don't come out to meet the ball when it goes out wide to Chukwueze. I don't know if that's how I say his name, but nobody comes out wide. And then the goal is just unfortunate. If you watch it back, it's a really good ball in on the edge of the 6-yard line. And Roefs makes a movement to come for it. And Ballard, who's running towards him at that point, marking Jiménez, he says, okay, fine. I'll lean into Jiménez and keep him away from you. And then Roefs steps back and Ballard, thinks, oh, now what? And Jiménez sneaks in behind him. So it's a confusion between Roefs and Ballard. And it's just unfortunate. And Jiménez just, is quite strong there and gets in behind him, because it would be unlike Ballard to let the man behind him get the ball. And it's just that stuttered movement from Roefs about shall I come, shall I not, that causes the problem there. But you're right. I think that Fulham played well. I'm going to have to change my mind from the other week, James. They didn't look like a relegation side at all.
We hammered them, didn't we? Good. We absolutely hammered them in the build-up.
And they didn't look like a relegation side at all. They played very well. I think we gifted them the shape and the way to play. To their strengths, they love crossing. They're one of the biggest crossing sides in the division, and we sat thick in the midfield and in front of goal and pushed them out wide. Well, they were quite happy with that. We're quite happy to defend that, but ultimately that is how they score. doing what they want. And they, if I was a Fulham fan and we had not won that game, I'd be annoyed. And I'd have been annoyed at half time not being ahead. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the foul, it was hard to see. I think there's, I agree, plenty of time to reset. That's not the reason why the goal is conceded. And I find the thing largely irrelevant because they were the better team. They should have won that game. If it wasn't for their horrible finishing, they'd have been more ahead by then.
Yeah, and Roefs, we should say, made a couple of decent saves as well, didn't he, Michael?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Roefs kept us in that game for a lot of it. Some of the shot, I mean, from Fulham's point of view, the only negative really is that some of their shots and their final third finishing, as Taff alluded to, was really poor. And I think obviously they had Raúl Jiménez, but they've got issues up front, apparently. So if it weren't for that, I think they would have probably ended up winning by more. And I think that I've been speaking, there's a few people I've spoken to on whether online or in person that reckon Fulham could be in real trouble. But I'll tell you what, based on yesterday, not a cat and chance they go down, as far as I'm concerned. I think that they're
strong at home, aren't they? Very strong.
Well, exactly. But this is the thing I think people are overlooked a lot before the game. Fulham have only lost once at Craven Cottage this season, and that was to Arsenal, who are like the runaway lead. Well, say runaway, but they're the leaders of the Premier League. It's no disgrace there. And yes, you can say, oh, well, they beat Leeds, they beat Wolves. They've still got to win these games. Brentford aren't a bad team, and Fulham battered Brentford when I watched them play them. So I think you've got to just say that Fulham were just the better side on the day, and I think that happens in the Premier League. And, if we'd have come out of that game with a point, it probably would have been close to daylight robbery because of how the game ended up panning out. And I actually think that was probably one of the best performances from a team against us this season, in my opinion. And I thought Fulham were it wasn't like Fulham just bullied us and just tried to, be an absolute nuisance. I mean, they did that as well, but they played with real quality as well. I would be staggered if Fulham ended up getting relegated. And I think, the only slight concern I've got when it comes to the table, but I'm not too worried yet, is the fact that, a couple of weeks ago, the gap to the bottom three was 12 points. Now it's 8. It's just slowly starting to decrease a little bit. So we could do with bouncing back next week and getting something at the very least against Bournemouth. But it's important to stress that from my perspective, I don't know if you two agree on this, from my perspective, I've always kept on saying, even when we drew against Arsenal, even when we beat Chelsea, 40 points. That's exactly what you've got to do. And I will keep banging about it to the point where it'll probably become a drinking game and have a shot every time I say it. So please don't do that, because you will probably end up mortal and in A&E. But I would, not that I'm condoning that, by the way. But yeah, 40 points for me is still the immediate target, and we're still on course to achieve it.
I think so. I think it's a very disappointing performance. I was disappointed watching it, coming away from the game. Disappointment rather than annoyance, I would say. And I do think a little bit of perspective is needed. And it's been good to see, actually, that, sort of toys haven't been thrown out of the pram. This is Sunderland's first loss in 7 weeks. I know there's been an international break at the middle of that, but by and large, we've had a good season. And we've seen enough from this team, I believe, to be competitive. I want to go to a few questions in the YouTube comments. This statement comes from Andy Ross over on YouTube. Very, very good point, actually. If Le Bris does not trust any of the other midfield options, then this must be addressed early in January. Interestingly, Le Bris had pretty much a full squad available and opted not to put Chris Rigg on the bench. He didn't have a knock, so that was a selection/tactical call. And once again, I know we seem to talk about him in every podcast, but it's just so clear now, really, that he doesn't trust Dan Neil in the Premier League, because to me, Sunderland needed an extra man in midfield, as we've mentioned. That didn't happen. He didn't allow himself the option to bring Neil on. Didn't allow himself the option to bring Chris Rigg on. To me, it feels, with the mood music as well, Sunderland constantly being linked to Guendouzi and others, that might be something that Le Bris looks to improve on in January, along with Speakman and Gasolfi. I don't know who wants to tackle that first.
I think that, I don't mind this stuff about Guendouzi. He's an excellent player, but that just, to me, is it's a bit more of the same. We'd be much stronger for it, but it would be a clear signal that we're playing very, very defensively. And I think we could have made a much better fist of that game yesterday. We could have pressed Fulham. We could have been in that game, but we had so little creativity going forward in the midfield. It's such a very defensive midfield. And then our flanks don't offer that sort of pace and trickery either. And I just think, he's not against a team that we really should be trying to be on the front, but he's not front-footed against them. And it was a bit disappointing. Fulham played very well, but we made it easy for them. And if you want to think about what we can do, well, you could say Chris Rigg would be solid defensively and might offer a bit more physicality he's not shy of creativity at times on the wing, because I thought Traore was poor yesterday. and seems to lack any physicality on the ball. You could have played differently, and maybe Brobby would be holding the ball up instead of trying to knock balls over the top for Wilson. On that slippy surface, he had no chance of catching anything. And you have Le Fay on the left. Yes, he's great on the left, but again, he's much more defensively minded. There's no pace, there's no trickery, there's no getting around the back. And I just think we've got wingers, we've got options, and none of them get played. And I think it is a concern that we set up against a team we didn't need to be so defensively yesterday, and there was little opportunity to, as you say, link with the forward lines. It was a long ball, and on that surface we were not getting anywhere. I think we could have made a much better job of it yesterday, and we didn't. So getting Guendouzi in January would seem to just be confirmation that that's how we're going to play, and that's a bit disappointing if that's where we go all season against all teams.
I think I'll ask you this question that ties in slightly with it, Michael, from Facebook, from Sean Foxton. He says, same 11 every game. Are we becoming too predictable? Worst game of the season yesterday, deserve nothing. I'm guessing he means in terms of personnel and tactics. But how do you see that midfield at the moment? Because for me, it really lacked bite.
I think it lacked sort of... I think for me, the midfield we've got shouldn't lack bite. I think Xhaka and Sadiq have proven in other games this season they have had a lot of it. But I do think it might have been more of a systematic thing. Rather than because even when it's been Xhaka and Sadiq, we haven't been playing just them. Well, recent weeks we have, but in general, we haven't played them just as a two on their own, have we? We've been pretty much playing them two, whether it would be Le Fay as a 10 in front of them, whether it's Rig as the furthest of the three. I'm not as personally sure that yesterday's game and the conditions and the way we were setting up would have suited Rig, even though I do agree with Taff, Rig can be quite good defensively, but his best strength for me is being the 10 and driving forward. And okay, granted, it's a small sample size, but when I watched him against Aston Villa before Reynaldo got sent off, I thought Rig looked very good against them. And unfortunately, he was just the guy who had to be subbed off as soon as we went down to 10 men. So I do think the Guendouzi links are very interesting, because I definitely have him. But that for me, begs the question, do we get to the point where Rig, if say, for example, Dan Neil, I think, look, one way or another, I think Dan Neil's not here next season. Whether it's he leaves for free in the summer or whether he gets sold in January. And even if he gets sold in January, you're barely going to get anything for him, really, aren't you? You're going to be lucky to get a couple of million because of the last 6 months of his contract. But it's a couple of million that can help towards PSR a little bit. Everything can count there. It's a little bit of pure profit. The thing I'd ask for, I agree with Peter saying the weather was horrendous yesterday. Not an excuse, but spoils play a bit. Fantastic cross with the goal. If Roefs had stuck with his convictions, would have blocked it. Yeah, I think the conditions were horrendous, but I think not to be too much Yadar moment, but it was the same obviously for both teams, wasn't it? So you've got but maybe Fulham, I don't know, maybe it rains in the capital more and Fulham are more used to it. I don't know. I'm just being conspiratorial there. The three teams that have just been said there are the three for me that we need to finish above to stay up. Because I've said before that I don't think Forest go down. I don't think West Ham go down. And based off yesterday, I'd be astonished if Fulham got relegated. So I think those type of clubs will improve as the season goes on. But as far as the midfield was concerned, I want to put this into the room. Would either of you be surprised if Rig was sold in January if he's not playing?
Because
there's no chance that happens. There's no chance that happens.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Go for it.
It's had a 5-year deal in the summer. The club rate him highly. I think he stays around. I can't see him going out on loan as well. I know that question's been thrown around, but they really believe in Chris Rig, and he's the poster boy for the academy, isn't he, really? And I think it's not time, although the club has advanced, it's not time to throw the sort of baby out with the bathwater, is it? And I think Chris Rig has a very bright future. Still one of the best young talents in England. We forget how young he is as well. He's still only 18 years old. You know, there's not too many 18-year-olds playing in the Premier League regularly. Obviously, one of them is Josh King, who played for Fulham. But there aren't loads and loads and loads of 18-year-olds playing all of the time for a club. So I think, give him that experience, let him be a slow burner. He's played a lot of football in the Championship. Let him adapt to life in the Premier League. Let him learn from Xhaka. I think his development's best served here, to be brutally honest. Maybe there's a conversation to be had in 6 months or a year's time or 18 months. If he has slipped further down the pecking order, he needs to play games. But for me, right now, not a chance.
Good thing for me is that if that does happen, though, because we've tied him down to a 5-year contract, in 18 months, you'll still have 3 years left on it. So we can still command a lot of money. So that for me is why, as James will have heard me say before, and that's why I make a fuss about the length of players' contracts, because they are important for that very reason, for PSR particularly. But I think with Rig, I think the good for me, I still see Rig playing quite a lot during the AFCON period when we lose a lot of players. I would love to see Rig during the AFCON period. Give him a good few games because you can't be burnt out because he's barely played. And I think that's an opportunity for him to go, right, okay, here's what go and show what you're made of, really. So no, it was just, I don't think Rig leaves either, by the way. But it's a question I thought I would just throw into the room there. But I could see Dan Neil going potentially, but yeah, I think I'd be surprised if Rig left as well. Sorry, Taff, I don't know if you were going to take anything on that.
No, I think you said it all. I don't think he'd go. I don't think he's leaving. Not at all, and I don't think he'll leave in the summer either.
Taff, do you think with this system, the five at the back, do you think the plan, maybe it's in possession, is for Gertruida to join that middle two, make it a three, and sort of play that way, and has it maybe it's not functioned as intended? Because for me, that doesn't seem to be happening very often. We know he has the capability to do that. We know he can play in midfield, and I wonder if that's a sort of a facet of this system that hasn't really gone to plan.
Well, when they do have possession, it's Hume who folds up into midfield, and he sits in midfield alongside Xhaka, and Siddiqui tries to get a little further ahead, and Mukiele moves across as the right back. So we do have more people in the midfield, a regular number of people in the midfield, like we do if we played 4-3-3. But it's Hume folding into the midfield. And I just think if you're going to do that and we're going to play in possession like that, then why not have a proper creative midfielder with some guile, with some, drive to running? Because it's not Hume's natural position, therefore not his natural game. You don't see him driving forward with the ball like Diarra would or like somebody else would. So I just think if you're going to play like that, and that's going to be your midfield three, why not play a proper midfield in there? And the negative about doing that as well is that once we concede possession sort of in and around the middle of the park, that middle third, Hume folds back into a right back, and Mukiele moves across as the third centre half. And what that does is that basically just surrenders instantly from the halfway line back to the 16-yard line in territory, just surrenders it instantly because we end up with two midfielders there folding back into that five at the back. And I just think, if teams can look at that, then there is easy space for them to move into. And Fulham were very happy with the flanks and very happy to cross the ball. It's an unfortunate error that leads to a goal, but they had a lot of chances. Two clear misses at the back post, one from Wilson's corner and Kevin with a free header. And when they broke in midfield, they broke in against the play when we were pressed high, and they had a lot of space there. So I just think the system in those moments of transition with Hume moving into the midfield, it doesn't give us the midfield creativity of having three people, because that's not his game. He's never driving forward with the ball particularly, and when we fold backwards, we concede a lot of territory very quickly. And against weaker teams, it doesn't work for me.
And in fairness, Taff, just to stay on this point slightly longer, but you mentioned obviously Fulham's excellent wing play.
Yeah,
and it's interesting, isn't it? Because over the past couple of games and weeks, I've actually praised Sunderland for that, because they've said to the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal, okay, you have the ball on the wings and we're quite happy to head it away. We'll back ourselves physically and defensively.
Yeah.
And on this occasion, it sadly just hasn't worked. That is the risk you run, isn't it?
It is. We did dominate those crosses defensively, so we had faith in ourselves to do that. And it is just an unfortunate mistake. Roefs thinks he's going to come for it, and somebody said in the comments earlier, I think you had it up before, if Roefs sticks to his conviction of coming for that ball, then he probably gets it, and Ballard is leaning into Jimenez to keep him away. But it's the indecision from Roefs there, and I don't mean that to dig him out. That's just the reason. It's just unfortunate. But I think if he comes for that ball, I think the game probably ends up a draw. I think we continue to dominate that defensively. It's unfortunate, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Fulham, yes, great crossing side. Give them the ball and let them cross it. See what you do with it. We have faith in ourselves, and that very nearly worked, but for one error, and those errors are occasionally going to happen. But I just think the problem we had with that system is we didn't offer anything going forward, so it was going to be really hard to get anything from that game. And I think we should be offering more against that team. Sure, you can back yourself. Sure, we can not concede, and we're unlucky to concede, but we didn't deserve to win that game. Nowhere near.
No, we didn't. We're going to zoom through some questions on YouTube. Andy Ross says, assuming we lose at City and Liverpool, how important is the Bournemouth game could be very close to the bottom three after AFCON. Michael, what do you make of Andy's question?
I think it's definitely. I agree with him. I think that the Bournemouth game. I think even if you get something out of it, even if you get look. I mean, I don't think a point's a horrendous result against Bournemouth, and I know people might be tired of me saying take a point here, now, and the other, but every draw counts when we're in this position. So I think even if you drew against Bournemouth, for example, you're on 20 points. You're halfway towards the magical 40 points mark, or supposedly magical 40 points mark. Yes, I think it's safe to say that there's a good chance we lose away at Liverpool and Man City. I think for me, even if we're close to the bottom three after AFCON, we have to remember AFCON doesn't end the season. There's still, 15 games or whatever it is after AFCON, and we will have barring injuries, obviously, we should have the bulk of our side back after AFCON. So I think, for me, the games where we absolutely need to get results in are the likes of when Leeds come to the Stadium of Light, when Burnley come to the Stadium of Light, when we go away to Leeds, go away to Wolves. I mean, John Ming raises a fair question. He's just put, why can't we beat Liverpool? I mean, the way they're going at the minute, you never know. But, I think Liverpool's I view Liverpool game as the same way that I viewed Arsenal. But I wouldn't have been shocked if we got something, but I'm not necessarily expecting anything. So, but you never know. Hopefully Liverpool continue to be really, really poor and we can end up getting a good result. But we'll wait and see one way or another. But yeah, I think you've just got to, the way I look at it is, say by January, start of January, I mean, if we could get to around at least 25, 26, 27 points, then I think you're on course to do really well. And I think you're on course. And remember, I could see Sunderland, because apparently our PSR position is quite good.
There's no PSR anymore, so
no. Well, then there you go.
It's all been changed, isn't it?
Sorry,
it's all been changed to another three-letter acronym that I'm going to have to learn some stuff about. So.
Okay, then I wonder what it's called. What's the three letters now these days?
Squad cost ratio.
So it's moved, Michael, to the system.
SCR.
Yeah, it's moved to the system that UEFA employs. So it's gone from PSR to SCR, which I don't know the ins and outs properly. I need to do a little bit of studying, but from my understanding, I actually think it's going to give us even more wiggle room, to be honest.
I think it's your wages, transfer, agent fees, manager wages may not exceed 85% of total revenues. I think
85% of your turnover is.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's revenues.
That's quite a high percentage, actually.
But weirdly, that's kind of the same metric that UEFA use, so helping teams with European competitions. But weirdly, UEFA have a 70% limit, so in that sense, it doesn't help. Yeah.
So basically, Taff could allude to the fact maybe we could do with just being the same. Say we can be 12th to top half this season, then we sign all the players to target European football next season, then we don't have to worry about the limits then because we've already got the players on the pitch.
That would be nice.
I mean, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
What clubs seem to be willing to do is to say we'll play an 85% squad cost ratio, and then UEFA will say you're entering a competition, European competition, and your squad ratio is above 70%, so we'll fine you. And it seems to be the Premier League clubs are just going to be willing to pay the fine because they're over the UEFA one, as long as they're.
I mean, the money's that ridiculous, isn't it? They could afford to do it. So
some of them.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, for a lot of them, it's just basically pocket change, isn't it? I would imagine. So, but no, to be fair, if you're looking at it, I think personally, just make sure we just keep getting enough points, and I think next season could be massive if we do stay in the Prem because of the extra money you get from that. But as I quickly and to go to January before you want to go through more comments, I think based on the summer, I don't think we'll be quite as busy in January, obviously, as we were in the summer. But I wouldn't be surprised if we made a couple of really big signings in January as well.
Yeah, Brian Lawson adds over on Facebook that he wouldn't overanalyze this. We played bad. It happens. There's next Saturday to sort it out. And I guess that's a wider point, isn't it, Taff, that this group of players, this coaching staff, they have a lot of credit in the bank. It's not like Sunderland were hammered. We're talking about a few little tactical tweaks here. We've had an excellent season already. I firmly believe there's more moments to come. I'm going to sort of nail my colours to the mast. We might go through a bad run of form starting from now. Who knows? But I still can't see us getting relegated or being anywhere near the relegation zone. Personally, I hope I'm right on that. But yeah, for me, this group still has a hell of a lot of credit in the bank.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Brian Lawson's absolutely correct here. We're in a really great position. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have worse losses than this, in the sense that we should be winning and it gets nicked off us at the end. That's going to happen. We didn't deserve to win. It's a bad day. Hopefully some lessons will be learned and we'll play a bit differently in conditions and against other sides. But it's really great to be in a position where this loss doesn't really matter. And I think that's a really nice place for us all to be. We can just, put it to one side and move on. We're not stuck in the bottom three. It doesn't put us there. And I think that's great. So, yes, credit in the bank. We move on. But it would be, the worry for people is, is this how we're going to be all season? Is it going to be like this from now on? I get that worry. We're going to have bad patches, but we're going to have good patches as well. Everyone worries about the coming difficult games, about the games in AFCON. But I'm going to put it to you that we are a AAA side after AFCON. We are awesome after AFCON when everybody is fit and back. And we might finish the season explosively. So we're going to be AAA at the end of the season.
I love the thinking behind that. I think, but you know what I think as well? Another thing is that even when we go through a bad patch and we do lose games, because it will happen, the big thing for me, and I think Taff might have mentioned this either on with Connor or a video on his own channel, which either way, both are superb. But I think you mentioned that I think there's a goal difference could be massive as well. So even if when we're losing games, don't get battered too much because goal. I think did you say that I think goal differences could be positive goal difference would put you in really good stead at the end of the season if we were in the bottom 6, 7.
Basically, it was in the pre-season video about why we won't be relegated. If you can keep what things you need to do, one of them is if you can keep a 0 goal difference or even a fractionally positive goal difference, you will almost definitely not be anywhere near relegation. A positive goal difference or a 0 goal difference usually puts you about 15th. And our goal difference is really good. And maybe that sort of thing plays in the mind of Le Bris because he is super cautious. I don't think any of us, even if we have a bad day, go on a bad run, I don't think any of us ever think that we're going to get hammered by anybody this season because he's just too careful not to let that happen. So I think that goal difference must surely be a thinking in the long-term view of Le Bris.
Yeah, Keith on YouTube says yesterday was another reason to dislike the international break. I think it's. I'm not trying to excuse the players at all here because I do think it's a poor excuse, but I do wonder the likes of Xhaka, who again is a player who has immense amounts of credit in the bank, didn't look as good as he has done yesterday. But I do wonder if the emotional high of the Switzerland games, qualifying for the World Cup, playing maybe 290 minutes. I wonder if that's been a little bit of a factor for some of these players. Again, it's not an excuse. There'll have been Fulham players who were away on international break as well. But it feels like to me it may have had some sort of small impact. I may be grasping at straws a little bit, but I hate international breaks is what I'm saying. It would have been great to just continue on after the high of that Arsenal game.
Yeah, I hate them as well. I really don't like them. I mean, I care about, say, England, for example, when it comes to tournaments. I know that, Taff, obviously you feel differently, don't you? But, I care about England when it comes to, Euros and World Cups. When it comes to qualifiers and it comes to what I consider to be pointless friendlies, I'm like, well, what do we learn from it? Apart from a chance to obviously get cohesion and chemistry together, but which I guess is important, but for tournaments. But either way, I think, I think if you're looking at it like that, when did Switzerland play the 2 games? Was it one on a Saturday, one on a Tuesday? Was one on a Friday, one on a Monday? Because I don't know. If it was a case of that he's only been back here a couple of days, then we had to travel to Fulham, then who knows, maybe that might be a factor. I would say then, hopefully this week, no game, midweek, week of training, and then see how we look next Saturday.
Yeah, Switzerland played Saturday, Tuesday, so I'm probably over-egging it slightly, but
maybe not.
They were big games, though, to be fair. So.
Yeah, well, that's for me. I'm more thinking of the emotional high of something like that, and then coming. Granit Xhaka is an uber ultra professional. I'm not, in no way questioning his desire or work rate or anything like that. But I just wonder if subconsciously, in the rain at Craven Cottage, a real dogfight. You've already got these 2 games in your legs with Switzerland. The emotional high of that. I think it all factors in. We're only human, Taff, at the end of the day.
Do you mean can you do it in a cold, rainy afternoon at Fulham?
I just think that you come back from they all get back from international duty sort of Wednesday, I imagine, maybe Thursday, and there isn't actually much time to say, look, this is a team we can get up at. We're going to play a bit differently. It's much the safer option to say 4th game in a row. Let's pick the same team. We all know what we're doing. So in that sense, the international break might well have disrupted any opportunity to very safely have a different plan because everybody comes back from distant places. Some will be tired, and we also have to travel down to London before the Saturday. So I just think maybe it's just easier for Le Bris to say, look, last 3 games we played like this. We did quite well. Same again, lads. There isn't any time to plan for anything different. So maybe that international break does factor in there. Who knows?
Yeah, interesting question over on YouTube. I'm just trying to find it. Let me just quickly have a look.
Do you mind if I ask Taff a quick question then while you're
Yeah, you go for it. You save the day.
Because we mentioned, because I agree with you when you said we're going to have bad patches. But the good thing, and my opinion is, I don't know if you agree, is we could afford if another good patch for Sunderland, for example, results in 15 to 18 points over 10 games, for example, then we're pretty much there, aren't we, in terms of staying up, barring another. So basically, what we can afford to have a bad patch as long as it's not and it's going to be less catastrophic, not to be trying doom and gloom.
I think,
but you know what I mean. If we have a good patch, we should be almost there.
Yeah, January the 4th, I think that's the halfway point. That game against Spurs.
20 games. Man City at home is the 19 game mark, but by Spurs 20 games will play.
By the end of the Spurs game, that's halfway. If we can get 10 points between now and January the 4th, that would be amazing. We'd be on 29 points. That would be absurdly good. We'd be almost safe. So there's plenty of space for us to have a bad run and still be good. And then there's a long way there to go. So let's see.
Yeah, let's talk about the Bournemouth game. Let's have a little preview. I suspect I know what you're both going to say, but at home, should Le Bris change things? We'll start with Bowers. In terms of system personnel, obviously Alderete is now back fit. He was on the bench. He's got options now. As he mentioned in the post-match press conference, he's got almost a full squad available to him.
I think there's another quick point is we probably missed Alderete as well. I think yesterday for me showed that Alderete is pretty much. Cheers, Taffy, mate. Appreciate it. What I was going to say was I think Alderete is, because I really love Mukiele, Ballard. I love our defensive options for the most part. But what I would say is that Alderete, there's not quite another person in the squad from a defensive point of view, like as a central defender or fullback, that brings the ball out as technically as well as Alderete does. And I think in this game,
they've got a great left foot as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. Look at the cross was it his left foot cross from Mayenda against West Ham on the opening day? That's an example of what we're on about. So I think for me, sorry, the dog's having a drink of water. If you can hear it splashing in the background, I don't know. But either way, I think Alderete, coming back in would actually be quite handy in this game. So to answer the question, would I change system? Yeah, I think you probably do go with a 4-3-3. I'd be tempted. I wouldn't be surprised to see Rick start next week, because I think Le Bris might think of it as Bournemouth at home. Okay, look, no discrepancies about Bournemouth. They are not a bad side. They're a very, very, very good team. Obviously, came back and
coached as well. Excellent.
Yeah,
manager.
Exactly. There's a reason that a lot of people tip them to do really well. But when you look at Bournemouth, I do think I think at home we need to be getting something at the very least. And I don't mean that as obviously in any disrespectful way, of course. No disrespectful way, of course, to Bournemouth, because again, they're not a bad side. But I do think that we, like as Andrew's just said, that I think home form it's a typical thing, but our home form is going to give us a good chance of staying up. So I'd say probably a good 4-3-3, and I think if Alderete comes back in, then I think it might give us a bit of an extra dimension going forward, as well as the fact Alderete can obviously be good defensively, but going forward he'll offer a bit more. But yeah, 4-3-3 for me.
Well, let's talk about that, Taff, because for Alderete to have to come back in, you would probably have to remove Hume and put Nordi at right back. Now that looks like a really, really strong back line then, because you would have Nordi, Mukiele right back, you'd have Ballard, Alderete, and then you'd have Reinildo. Do you think that's something you should be considering? I do feel like it's a little bit harsh on Trey Hume. I think he's adapted to life in the Premier League quite well. But are those Sunderland's 4 best defenders in a 4-3-3?
Yes, they are. And I think that people, I know you've all given him credit there, but I would go further and say I think Alderete is an absolute necessity in that back line. And if he was fit, he may well, should have played at the weekend, because if you think about the games we've played without him, he's our best ball player in the back line. And when he brings the ball out, he is able to ping these crosses from the left centre half position all the way over to the right wing. And if you think about the games he's missed, we haven't had anything like that at all, that crossfield left to right pass. It just has been non-existent. So it really does blunt our opportunities. So I think he's got to play because he offers us that. And you think about the January transfer window. I don't know if they're interested still in the Sumi. But when Alderete's not there, I think it's really visible in the lack of options playing forward with the ball. Because we lose his ball controlling left field pass. So he's got to play. And then I think Ballard keeps his position. I think Mukiele is super solid.
He's good offensively as well, isn't he? He's not bad offensively.
Very
athletic, very pacey.
For the throws and his pace, and he's able to deliver the ball. I think he's better than Hume. I think that's why he was signed. Hume's done very well, and it seems very harsh, but that is our best back line with Reinildo on the left. And I don't think it's that bad, because a lot of the time in this five at the back, you're folding Hume into midfield in possession anyway. And I just think, well, let's get a better midfielder in there if that's what you're going to do. And at home, I don't want us to do... I don't want us to play five at the back against Bournemouth at home.
The dogs just want to be involved.
We shouldn't be under the cosh against them at all. Yeah.
Couple of questions over on Facebook. One from Ant Jobling and one from Andrew Watson as well, centering around wingers. Is it time for you, Taff, to see the natural ringers return? Andrew Watson also asked when we're going to mention Adingra, Talby and Broby. That bench looked really, really strong, didn't it? And there is perhaps a shout for more of an attacking outlook and more of a direct style of play.
I actually thought yesterday was a game for Broby, particularly because of the weather. It was very clear very early that pinging balls over the top to Isidore, he wasn't going to get on the end of them because everything just raced away on that wet surface. And it would have been much better if Broby were on for the ball to be played into him to hold him up. The only problem when he came on is that they continued to try and put balls in behind, and there were a few that were played up to him. And I just think that could have been a bit better. But he was up against possibly the first defender that he can't bully in Bassi at the back, who was bigger than Broby. So maybe Broby might have been a better option in the rain yesterday and better play. Yes, I mean, I love Talby. Increasingly, he's really good. I think Adingra is probably not going to be favoured at all by Le Bris, because he's not reliable defensively. And that's why even on the right, Traore gets the nod ahead of him, because he is... he is disciplined in shape defensively. I don't think that's enough to keep him there, but it's important for Le Bris, because Le Bris is caution first and solidity at the back first. But yes, I think Talby has surely got to start somewhere. If you looked at our midfield yesterday, we had no outlet for creativity, and Talby is he just looks so tricky on the ball. He's got immense pace. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him start at home.
Such a shame he didn't. Such a shame he didn't give that ball to Lefay, isn't it? Because that felt like a turning. It felt like a turning point that for me. If he had the man over, I mean, it probably would have been undeserved on Sunderland's part. But what is it? 2 or 3 minutes later, Jimenez gets the goal.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is Siddiqui had a chance to shoot, but plays the ball to Lefay when he should take the shot on, racing up, and that's happened a couple of times. And I feel like, he can have a strike at goal a bit more often. He gets into those positions and, crossing the 16-yard line. And I just think it's not his natural play, but I think he can take it on a bit more sometimes. We need more creativity. I think we have to play a winger at home, a proper one.
I tell you what, let's run through our formation and playing personnel for Saturday's game against Bournemouth. I'm putting you on the spot, Michael, but we'll start with you. Go through 1 to 11 and which formation you're playing.
Okay, then. Obviously, Roefs in goal. Then the back four is going to be interesting, because if we're going with back four, which I'm assuming we're probably all going to say, I would probably go with... it's actually tricky, but for a good reason, because we actually have a bit of depth there. Is this what I would go with, or what I think Le Bris will go with?
What you would go with, but you can caveat that with what you think Le Bris will go with as well.
All right, then. So what I would go with is probably Mukiele. It's harsh, really. I think Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, Reinildo, and I can't remember if it was Connor or Taff. One of you said on the shows you did, that would be our back four across the whole season. I think it might have been you. Is there anything that Hugh might get dropped at some point over the season? But if I put words in your mouth, then my apologies. But
no, I think that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'd say Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, and Reinildo. Because I think Alderete. I agree with what Taff said. I think he's going to be essential to try and help us create next weekend. I'd say obviously Xhaka and Siddiqui. Me personally, I'd like to see Rig go in there and get a go. I think he probably earned the right. I think he probably does deserve one. And this is a game where we're going to be on the front foot a bit more. I think Lefay will start, and I wouldn't be against it either, because I think generally he has been very good. on the left-hand side for me. So I'd say Lefay on the right. It's a weird one because I'd like to see Talby off the left-hand side, really. Right, screw it. We'll move Lefay to the right, Talby to the left, and then, Isidore / Broby up front. I suspect it will be Isidore, but I wouldn't complain with seeing Broby there either.
So I would go 4-3-3. I would go Roefs, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, Renildo. I would like to see Xhaka, Lefay and Siddiqui in the middle. I would start Talby, then one of Traore or Adingra. I don't know which wing spots those three players would occupy, who would be on what side. Obviously, Talby's a little bit better from the right, isn't he? And then I would probably start with Wilson Isidore and bring Broby on again as a finisher with a view to maybe's changing that in the next couple of games if Wilson doesn't get one. But I think at home, Wilson's very, very good, very strong.
Yeah.
Feeds off that home crowd. That's what I would do. Obviously, I'm not paid to make the big decisions. I don't think Le Bris would do that. And I actually think, just thinking about the way Le Bris's mind works, I actually think he would be loath to drop Geertruida, to be honest, Taff. How do you see it?
I forgot to mention, yeah.
I think so. I think Le Bris probably starts with a 5 next week, although I hope he doesn't. Let us imagine that he doesn't at home and that he feels like home games against teams like Bournemouth who really have to win. Then I think the back four that we've already said, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, Renildo. And then in the midfield, you could have Xhaka, Siddiqui, Geertruida. You could do that. And then your front line could be Lefay. I might have to start Talby on the right, although I accept he's better on the left. But I think Lefay has creativity, and I don't think Lefay would work on the right. So you've got to keep him on the left. So I'd start maybe Talby on the right. I might even start Rig on the right just to be safe, because I know Le Bris likes to be safe. He doesn't want to lose games in the first 20 minutes. He likes to stay solid. And I would probably start Wilson at home. I think Wilson's very much a confidence player. The crowd love him. He loves being there. And he'd be desperate to score, so he'll give everything. I think it depends on the weather. If you're going to ping balls in behind and it's going to be pouring down with rain again, well, that just isn't going to work. And then you're going to have to think about where your creativity comes from, because it can't be long second balls. But I think I might I keep Lefay on the left, and I might put Rig or Talby on the right rather than
Good shout.
and then Isidore up front. So my midfield three then behind those would be, I might play Geertruida in there with Siddiqui and Xhaka.
Can I ask you both a question? Do you think it'd be worth trying to get Geertruida in the midfield? Because I think there's a good chance we could be seeing that quite a bit during the AFCON period to get him more used to playing in that role. I know we can play, but I'm used to playing with these components around him. I mean,
I really like him as a player. I think he can do a lot, and obviously he's very versatile. But it might give Sunderland a little bit more of a foothold. But I'm not sure having Geertruida in there really allows that midfield to be that much more creative. If you know what I mean. Taff mentioned Siddiqui maybe needs to have a shot a bit more often, but he's not a creative type player. Xhaka is, in a sense that he's a bit of an orchestra, but in terms of a Habib Diarra type creator, he's not really that either. So I do see what you're saying, and I think it is a legitimate option, but I'm not sure whether that solves the problem we're all thinking of at the moment.
No, I don't think so. I think the problem is we struggle for creative midfielders in the centre of the park. I think Lefay might have been that player, but he does quite well out on the left, and
he does.
He lacks a bit of physicality to make that holding midfield role his own, ahead of people like Siddiqui and Xhaka. But against Chelsea, we played a slightly different way, where occasionally Geertruida or Ballard, whoever was the spare man, would come into that base of that midfield, and Xhaka was sometimes found playing up in the number 10 occasionally. So things like that are possible, and he was good that day, playing further up the field on occasion.
I want to throw this question at you, Taff, from Michael. Comes on YouTube. People are blinded. We do not create chances. The data has us below teams like Leeds or Burnley. We might be sitting well, but I don't think we've created anything close to enough. Now, you look at the data very, very regularly. What do you make of that comment?
Look, I think there's a lot of truth in it. I think there are things to be concerned about there. But equally, if we don't have possession, if we have lots of possession and we ping lots of stuff in, then there's going to be rebounds and you're going to get chances. The other way to look at that data is just to say we make clear-cut chances and we're clinical with them. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I think you have to be careful about how you use it. I do think essentially there is an underlying creativity problem. But as long as our goal difference is okay, as long as we keep producing clear-cut chances, and we do, then I'm prepared to not worry so much about it. But there is a problem there that will start to catch up with us. And I think yesterday was a really good example of a game where we should be doing better, and we created almost nothing. And I can't really find an excuse for that.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be one.
Can I ask you both something then? Do you think, because the thing I look at it is, and I think it's probably the wide players in particular, I think that's something that we'll have to look at moving forward, particularly if we manage to avoid relegation this season. And I know maybe that sounds like negative to a lot of people avoiding relegation, but I've kept on saying we need to make sure we keep ourselves well away from the bottom three if we can. But the problem is, if you're wanting a finished article of a player, for example, out wide, and I think Talby's got a really bright future, by the way, just to make that very, very clear. But my point is, if you're really wanting a top draw level player, unfortunately, they cost a lot of money. And, you know, if we're in the Prem next season, I think we'll have much more license to go for more, like, so 40, 50 million pound players if we so choose to do so.
I think as well with Sunderland's attack, perhaps we're seeing the flip side to having bought so many players in the summer. Obviously, we've had to do that because we needed to upgrade the quality of the squad generally, and we've been full of praise for Sunderland in terms of how all of these moving pieces have adapted. But the attack is the hardest thing to coach, and it does take time to click. A lot of these players are quite young as well, even the likes of Adingra, only 24, 25. So I think there's potential there, and that's what Sunderland have paid for. Michael's right in what he says, Taff, that to get the best wingers, you do have to pay a premium. And Sunderland had to strengthen that defence. They had to strengthen that midfield. And actually, I don't think we should be revisionist and say that was the worst thing to do in January. In the summer, because it absolutely wasn't. You need that solid base to avoid relegation from the Premier League. You can't score a load of goals and concede a load of goals. It just doesn't work. You have to have a good defence as the basis of anything. Not to go all Tony Pulis, but for me, that was still the right call by Speakman, by Gasolfi, by everybody involved.
Yeah, and we're posting, you know, our goal difference, like I say, is crucial. We don't ever look like we're going to get hammered. We are always, even yesterday, always in games. And I think that being in those positions and having that sort of goal difference and always having chances is crucial to us, because we'll pull them off from time to time, like, you know, Nottingham Forest, you know, things like that. So, yeah, absolutely the best way to begin and to build and to be secure from. And it's a good thing that we're having conversations about how can we be more creative, how can we be more aggressive. We don't have any concerns aerially, defensively. So it's a good sign that that's where our conversation are. How do we score more? How do we be more creative? We don't have worries at the other end of the pitch, and that's a really good place to be, I think.
I feel like as well, it might come across as a little bit of a negative podcast, this one, and of course it's going to sound like that because we've lost. But I also think as well, Sunderland have really raised our expectations, and they deserve immense amounts of credit for that. They've gone well beyond what we thought was possible. They've had some great results. They've given us some fantastic moments already. But I don't think there's actually anything wrong with being disappointed with the result either against Fulham. And it does show just how far we've come. And yes, we can be disappointed with the result against Fulham in isolation, losing in the performance. But fundamentally, Michael, the club's still on the right track. Régis is still the right man. You know, everything's still rosy in the garden for me. This, I think, will just be a blip along the road.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think if anything, like what you've just said, that's actually weirdly a compliment towards Sunderland, because we know we're capable of better than we showed yesterday. But obviously, look, like we said, we have been fair and given credit to Fulham, in that Fulham actually were pretty good yesterday. So I think at the end of the day, look at it this way, and I think what Taffy made a very good point in the chat. I can't remember where it is the comment, but I think he said the question is where would we have taken before the season actually started? And if you'd offered us right now 12 games, 19 points, anyone who says they wouldn't have took that, I think, is lying through their back teeth. And obviously, to be fair, that was before we knew how because I didn't know how we were going to adapt.
Well, there are people, Michael, who wouldn't have thought that was actually possible at the start of the season. I mean, many pundits had us going down. Many rival fans had us going down with a record low points. And to be fair, with the previous squad in the Championship that finished fourth, you actually could have seen that.
It probably would have happened, you know. It sounds harsh, but it probably would have. We obviously had to do quite a lot, but end of the day, I think you've got to give Sunderland an immense amount of credit for how we have started. And at the end of the day, I think Taff made a brilliant point, is that because of the start we've had, we can afford to have a bad patch as long as we obviously recover and have a good enough patch to get to close to 40. I mean, the way I look at it is, for the table now, what is it? We need to get another 21 points in 26 games. Now, I personally think, yes, there are obviously issues going forward and question marks about how we can improve going forward. But I'd like to think, touch wood, not put too much jinxing on it, but I would like to think we will have enough to get 21 points over the next 26 games. And we've allowed that. The more points we get now, the bigger the margin for error goes later in the season. And there was even an Arsenal fan who said in the comments, they're saying, you think we're Sunderland are better than we maybe make it look like we think we are. Like, I think we are generally quite good. I think we know we're quite a good side. It's just that we need to make sure we get the 40 points first. But end of the day, the big thing for me as well yesterday that we haven't mentioned, Wolves lost, Burnley lost as well. So if Leeds particularly don't, I mean, obviously we don't know how Leeds are going to get on against Aston Villa, but, you know, while Daniel Farke's still at Leeds, there's obviously a massive question mark over them for me.
Yeah.
You know, and in January, I think, and again, Taff might know more, but I think their situation now, I would imagine that Leeds don't have as much wiggle room in the January window as what we do in January. So I think we could attract better players in January because of that. So, I mean, I might be talking nonsense there. I don't know, but either way, I think we're still in very good shape. I think we're still in.
Sunderland's a very attractive
after 12 games.
Sunderland's a very attractive club to be coming to at the moment. Just the joined up thing in the start to the Premier League life, the fact that Granit Xhaka is here, all of the noises coming out of the club are still excellent. On that note, we'll round off the podcast / live stream with a question from Bradley over on YouTube. Thank you for everybody who's commented over on YouTube and Facebook. We are going to try and make this a regular thing. The guests may differ every now and again, depending on availability, but I think Bowers is locked in and Taff is also always welcome. But Bradley says, where will Sunderland finish this season? And I guess to extend that question, has this reality check, so to speak, against Fulham altered your opinions? Because perhaps my shout of 8th the other day to you two might not be looking so rosy now. Now we've taken apart Sunderland's attack and
what are you talking about, James? We're still 6th, man.
We are still 6th.
The caveat
we are out of the running for the Champions League.
To be fair, we are 1 point off 11, so it can change. But yeah,
I personally would be delighted if we're anywhere sort of near the top half of the table.
Go on, Taff, you go first.
I think all of us would have taken 17th before the season started. But I'm going to stick to what I said last week. I am not looking at Wolves games or Burnley games. I'm now looking at Everton and Brentford. I'm watching those teams play. And I am looking for anywhere between 12th and 15th. I think that's probably where we'll be. We might get above that. There are chances. Let's see where we are and what we do in the January transfer window. But 12th to 15th would be where I'm sort of looking at now. I think that's attainable and hopeful.
Bowers, what do you reckon?
Yeah, well, obviously you've pretty much spoiled it by what I put in the chat. So, cheers, James. But not being serious, I did say even before Fulham, and I still stand by it now. I think that we will finish 12th. I think we'll, and to be fair, I think anything, like I said, 17th or above is still ultimately. I know KLD had the quotes that might have been slightly misconstrued about top 10 and everything, but that depends on January for me. It depends what we end up doing in January. So I personally reckon we will get 12. And I think for me, the big thing for me is to make sure we're still in the Premier League next season, because I could see Sunderland really going to places next season with another year of Premier League money behind us, with the fact that a lot of these players now will have known each other a year by the point that happens.
Yeah.
So, I think 12th is a really respectable finish for a promoted club. You got to bear in mind as well, like, I wish I was the same as Taff in not looking at Wolves, Burnley and Leeds games, but I will continue to do that until...
I'm still doing that.
I'll be watching Leeds Villa, praying that Villa get a good result. So,
and every loss still brings me great joy, to be honest with you. Nothing against those clubs, but...
Well,
no.
But another thing as well is, like, again, we're still 17 points ahead of Wolves, and I think that's bigger than people think it is. Like, it's,
Wolves are just gone now, aren't they? You can't even...
Yeah. But remember, the talk was at the start of the season, you have to finish the highest of the promoted clubs, and you have to hope one of the top 17 has a stinker. So, Wolves, thank you very much for being determined to do your bit of that bargain. So, I mean, and I think the longer, and psychologically, as you'll both agree, the longer Wolves go on without winning a game, the more danger they plummet into. So
I think we can safely say it's 2 relegation spots now.
I hope.
Basically,
I hope
Leeds and Burnley we stay up, in my opinion.
I hope they go down because of Rob Edwards and what he's done with his mother. So I hope they go down to punish him. I don't think yesterday's defeat makes any difference. So long as playing that way and making that, being that.
As long as that's an anomaly.
As long as that being that negative and playing that way and failing to take chances, as long as that doesn't become the default for the rest of the season, then I'm not worried at all.
How many more wins do you guys think we need across the season? Sorry.
How many more wins? 7?
I'd say 5. I'd say 5 or 6 with a handful of draws.
5 would be all right. 5 to 7 with some draws in there, Taff?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get closer to 50 points than 40, but
and as long as one of them, as long as
the critical thing, Taff, is we're going to get a good result in 3 weeks' time.
Well, let's not talk about that at the minute. I mean, we are 1 game closer to me wondering when those yellow cards are coming. That's it's another game.
I'm just saying, just don't play Siddiqui away at Man City and Xhaka. Just play Gertruda and Neil. Just take a batter in there, just as long as it's like 3-0 loss or something.
If we're winning next week at against Bournemouth, then get them both booked in the last 10 minutes. We can miss Man City, then they can both be back for Liverpool, and we can win at Anfield.
I like the sound of it. Right, thank you both for joining me. I've kept a lot of your time, over an hour. We went an hour and 20 last time, and that was very long, but that was a win. So maybe when it's a draw or a loss, we'll keep it to an hour. I'll quickly run through some of these names on the right hand side of my screen just to thank you: John Parr, Andrew Watson, Alan Gardner, Taffy Mackham, John McKinney, Tony Huntington, Ant Joblin, Andrew Watson. I probably think I've said his name a couple of times. Grindon 100, Peter Heppel, Bradley over on YouTube as well. Thank you to everybody who's commented, Facebook as well. Much appreciated. As I say, we're going to try and do this weekly as far as we can. The guests might change every now and again, but hopefully we'll see both Bowers and Taff back very, very soon. Thanks for joining us. Please tell me, Bowers, you go first, and then Taff, where people can find you if they want to hear more.
Well, I call myself Clean Sheet WANKER because I know James probably won't want me to swear. But I've barely mentioned clean sheets this season, funnily enough, actually, not on YouTube anyway. But no, it's just my channel. You just type my name, Michael Bowers, Sunderland. Since my subs count has actually gone up quite a fair bit recently somehow. But thanks very much for giving me the chance to plug myself, James. And thanks for having me on. So yeah, you can just subscribe. It mean a lot. I'm trying to get 7,000, and I'll hand it over to Taff on here on my right hand side, but obviously on here down below.
Yeah.
Which I am watching from.
I could be found on YouTube at Alt Ending. I do lots of collaborations with Connor Bromley. You can find his name on YouTube as well. We do a bunch of collaborations, 3 a week, and I am at SAFC Highlights on Twitter. Yeah.
Go follow everybody. We have a really vibrant local media and fanzine scene, I would say. It's nice to be a part of, definitely. Well, thanks for joining us. I should probably say head over to the Sunderland Echo and do some subscribing.
Yeah, you probably should.
I'll probably get wrong, won't I? So, yeah, go over there, read something, click a few links, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm over on TikTok as well. We're on X and Instagram and all of that sort of good stuff. Thank you once again if you've commented, and we'll be back next week to discuss the game against Bournemouth. Cheers, and we'll see you next time.